The question is that the motion be agreed to. I recognise the Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. And I rise with some concern, certainly with a lot of commitment to speak on this bill. And the bill is basically the mechanism by which the joint border management system can be implemented. And on the face of it, it's a very sensible piece of work. That is that customs, biosecurity and immigration can share information on people or on goods coming into this country. A very worthwhile move, we would think, given the computer technology and the sharing of information on everything else around the world. That's the first thing we should be able to do. And that's great. Except what we've got is a national government that has cut funding in core parts of border safety and security to pay for this computer system. Absolutely. So what they're going to do is have this wonderful Rolls-Royce information sharing process, and people will be there plugging in the information. Meanwhile, goods will be slipping past their very noses, coming into this country with the potential to cause billions, yes, literally billions of dollars of harm to our economy. Mr Speaker, I have to go back to the 2009 budget when the national government came in. The first thing it did, or one of the many things it did in its first budget, was cut 54 frontline staff from biosecurity. It cut $2 million from the biosecurity budget, and then it proceeded to announce that there'd be this wonderful new system. Well, it had been talked about while we were in government, that was to be fair. It's been around as a concept for a while, and they proceeded down this path, assisted, of course, by the Minister of Tourism, the Right Honourable John Key, because he was very keen to sit down with his Aussie mates and say, you can come to our country as quick as a flash, and we'll cut 8 minutes of the processing time from when you get off the plane to when you get out with your bags. 8 minutes. Whoa. That's why you should come to New Zealand.
Order.
So for the saving... Mr Chairman, you're in New Zealand. It's not why you should come. Mr Speaker, I apologise for that. Can I say that for the saving of 8 minutes, we introduced SmartGate. It can be, probably 2 or 3 times for the member over there. Can I say, Mr Speaker, for the young member over there, I'm sure it'll be 2 or 3 times. Mr Speaker, can I say that 8 minutes is a very expensive 8 minutes, Mr Speaker. The new joint border management system, where the sharing of information and along with SmartGate will allow the Australians to waltz into New Zealand without any checks or balances, is a very high-risk situation. We have many visitors from around the world coming through Australia, coming across the Tasman and coming through the system. Many, to be fair, won't be able to use SmartGate, but this system and the change that we're addressing here is to allow the implementation of swift, efficient border processing of both people and goods. Well, I say that is really dumb. This is one country that more than anywhere else in the world relies on biosecurity. We have biological systems in this country that produce the vast majority of our export wealth, and will do for some time in spite of our attempts to move into other areas of exporting. Mr Speaker, biosecurity is a thin line, and it is even thinner now that the national government's been in power for 3 and a bit years. They have cut funding, and what funding has been there between biosecurity, between customs and immigration, has been put into this new joint border management system. And I have a letter forwarded to the Minister of Biosecurity, a letter from an ex-employee, because he has moved on to another job, because he lost faith in what he was trying to do. This is not a fly-by-nighter. This is someone who worked for Biosecurity New Zealand for years and sent a letter in despair to the Minister of Biosecurity, the Honourable David Carter. He said that there has been one dog in use in Auckland for quite some time, shared between the airport and the ports, to sniff out possible biosecurity breaches or customs breaches, because they haven't trained enough. Well, I've asked questions of the Minister and he hasn't been able to give me answers on that. How many dogs are actually available? Do they provide 24/7 cover? Because planes come into this country on a 24/7 basis, and so do ships. And are we checking the border as we should, as a country entirely dependent upon the biosecurity systems that we have around this country? Mr. Speaker, it's a sham. And the effort that has gone into, firstly, the smart gate systems, distracting frontline biosecurity people from their work because they're trying to help the immigration and customs people to make sure that smart gate works because they want to please the Prime Minister. They want to please the Prime Minister. Well, it's all well and good, but they should not forget their frontline objectives. Mr. Speaker, the bill as introduced and it went to the Select Committee, the one that we're debating here tonight, had as an objective from the government, from the national government, that it was keen that retailers at Auckland International Airport could get access to border information so they could customise their business decisions based on the nationality of passengers on specific flights. Well, did that mean if there were a number of Japanese on the flight, they would get out their sheepskins? Or did it mean if there are a whole lot of people from the US that open up McDonald's? Or from the UK that they'd open up Kitty O'Shea's and they could all have a Guinness or a warm beer? The point being, this was the kind of dumb objective from the national government to assist their mates at the key airports to make more money from visitors who were flying in and out. That kind of shallow objective identifies the risks that we're dealing with here, Mr. Speaker, because if a government can put into a bill those objectives, then what about biosecurity? What about the compromises that have been made in both resources and in frontline efforts to ensure that we keep out fruit fly or foot and mouth or the whole range of organisms and unwanted pests and diseases that can be brought into this country by people who fly around the world in 24 hours and within 36 hours could have been on any farm, in any park, anywhere in the world, and could turn up on our border here and be assisted through to keep the Prime Minister as Minister of Tourism happy that no one's been offended at the front line. That is shallow, that is dangerous, and it is not something that we should tolerate. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that the Select Committee has given fair consideration of the bill, but I am concerned that what we have here is a shallow objective around computerisation and resource efficiency, which in themselves aren't bad objectives, but at the expense of frontline biosecurity in this country. Mr. Speaker, the Minister can't and hasn't answered the claims made in the letter to me from a frontline biosecurity officer. They've been identified in the paper today. There has been no clear explanation, and I think, and I'll certainly call for, a thorough investigation and inquiry into whether those allegations are true, because if they are, we are at serious risk, this economy is at serious risk, and that the bill we are passing now will only exacerbate the risks that we are facing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the resources aren't in the biosecurity systems that we need. Mr. Speaker, the Labor Party has concerns about what is happening here, and I challenge the Minister to get up and reassure us, if he can, and to address all the claims made in the letter, claims that have now been in the public arena, that we are not dumbing down frontline biosecurity systems just to appease the people who want to come into this country for a holiday or the people who want to import goods from anywhere in the world. We have open borders. We have said you're welcome to sell anything into our country, but we cannot afford to do that at the expense of some major incursion. Biosecurity is paramount, and this government has compromised that biosecurity protection.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the honourable member Cam Calder.
Mr. Speaker, please.